What's up, guys? Good to talk to you again. My name is Dr. Tom LaHue, and we're talking about type 1s and following the rules, or creating rules, or arguing about the rules, or debating the rules, or wondering if there are any rules. Where do the rules come from? All right, so in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com, if you're interested in booking an Enneagram coaching appointment, knowing more about yourself and the people that you love and how to get along with one another. Reach out to me. I'd love to have an appointment with you. And, sometimes people sign up for 3 weeks of coaching. Sometimes they just want to meet one time, whatever I can do to help. And also there are certificate programs if you're interested in Enneagram coaching or relationship Enneagram coaching, or all kinds of different classes I offer on spirituality and Christian life and all related to the Enneagram. So check that out on the certificate page. And, I never say this, but like, comment, and subscribe. I think you guys already know that, so I never think to say it. Thanks to my patrons. All right, let's jump into this discussion today on type 1s. First of all, let me say, type 1s, I love you guys. I know I need to lean more into that line, to 1. I need to start my day as a 7 thinking what needs to be done today, and is this really the most responsible use of my time? And I do appreciate that. And you guys have this wonderful gift that you bring to the rest of us, reminding us that we need to be responsible. We need to do all of the things that should be done and ought to be done, and we should show up to life in a compliant way of making sure that we're not neglecting all of our duties and responsibilities. And when you remind us of that, that's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful gift. It's just, we want you to not be so hard on yourself. And I don't mean to make these videos to further, punish you or beat you up or point out any flaws. That's not the intention of these videos. I'm trying to come alongside of you and just say, hey, we're 100% for you. And the gift you bring us is fantastic. Just recognize that all of us have these areas that, we might think of as kind of blind spots, or things that we do to ourselves and to others that we may not really realize are going against all of the goals that we have for our life. And so let's be aware of these things, and let's, observe them in our life and notice the impulses and the compulsions. Then maybe we can, not let them control us so much. Or in other words, we can not let our personality just drive the ship and, be stuck in autopilot or zombie mode. And so we're going through, some points that come out of Beatrice Chestnut's new book, The Enneagram Guide to Waking Up. I highly recommend the book. It's fantastic. And one of the things that she points out about ones that we all kind of already know, but it's useful to think about, is the ones over attention or focus on following rules. And I might push that a little bit more and say it's not only following rules, but sometimes it's like creating rules. Or maximizing rules, or defining further rules that, and this is a great thing. I mean, I've got kids, right? And every one of you guys that has been around kids, have you ever tried to play a board game with kids? I mean, even teenagers. So you get out the board game, whether it's Monopoly or whatever it is, and you set it all up. And you're playing this game. Can you imagine how difficult and disheartening it would be if we couldn't agree on the rules? I mean, if we all debated and argued about the rules and we couldn't find any agreement. What if somebody at the game, rolls the dice and let's say they get a 7, and that lands them in jail. And so they decide, I don't really want to land in jail, so I'm going to re-roll the dice and see what else I can get. I want to keep rolling until I land on free parking. Hey, I landed on free parking. Now, you can't play a game that way. If everybody can just roll until they get the number they want, if you land on, somebody's hotel and they say, hey, you owe me, and no, I don't, I'm not playing according to those rules. The rules are given to us to enhance the game. I know that we all that maybe aren't ones, we all kind of push back against the rules. Think of your 8s and maybe 4s a little bit, and obviously 7s. And we might push back on the rules or try to make friends with the rule book, so that we can manipulate it. But the reality is like the rules of life, and now you're going to have to define what those are for yourself. I mean, I have a Christian worldview, but we all have our what we accept as kind of being the way we should treat others and the way we should act in this world. But wherever you think the rules come from, that's another video for maybe even another channel. But realize that the rules that are given to us are not given to impede our enjoyment of life. The rules are given to us just like every game comes with rules. Every game comes with a rule book that says, and guess who creates the rules? The creator of the game, right? So the creator of the game creates a rule book for you to know how to orient yourself to play this game. And the rules are actually designed to enhance the enjoyment of the game, not to impede the enjoyment of the game. Okay, so you get the point. Now, that's a wonderful thing when somebody can remind us, the rules say, we're going to be out of line here. And that's a wonderful thing when somebody will take that responsibility to know the rules and then communicate the rules to the rest of us who may not care as much about the rules, to remind us so that we could, save us from a lot of problems and a lot of, terrible things we might do to ourselves and others. Okay. But as a one, the challenge for you is notice how oriented you are toward the rules and rule keeping and rule following and rule enforcing. Okay, just notice that. And let's see what she says here on this little section about type ones and rules. Observe to see, notice observe, we're not trying to fix ourselves so much. How does somebody who's broken fix themselves? So we want to observe these impulses within us and then recognize if sometimes these impulses might be moving us away from relationships and moving us away from enjoyment of life and living to our fullest potential and reaching all the goals we have and yada, yada, yada. Okay, so observe to see if you rigidly, there's a key word, rigidly. What's the opposite of rigidly? Flexible. Okay, fluid, flexible, easygoing. I mean, these things would maybe think of them as the opposite of being rigid. Is that a word you're okay with? Rigid? Do you see yourself as rigid? Maybe you don't. Maybe you do. I don't know. Do you see yourself as a rigid enforcer of rules or a rigid rule follower? Are you very rigid about the rules for yourself? Like for example, if the party starts at 9, do you have to be there at 8:45? How rigid are you in that? I wonder, what you think about that. Rigidly adhere to rules, routines, structures, and processes. So rigidly adhering to rules, routines, structures, and process, and you create rules for others. Create rules. There's a difference, isn't there, between acknowledging rules and reminding people of rules, discovering rules. There's a difference between discovering them and sharing them and creating them. There's a difference between creating them. When you're playing the game of Risk, there's a lot of rules in Risk, and I realize sometimes it can get kind of confusing. But nobody is obligated to create more rules in how you play the game of Risk or the game of Monopoly or even the game of poker. Nobody necessarily wants that. And in fact, people might be confused if they feel like you're creating rules. The goal would be to understand the rules and then to apply the rules and share the rules and at most maybe enforce the rules. But creating rules? That could be exhausting for you and for the people that are trying to, interact with you. My son is a 5, wing 4, and he was with a group of people and they were playing like 9 square in the air. It's kind of like 4 square. You play on the ground, but you play it up in the air with this apparatus anyway. And so they were playing, everybody was having a great time, but the coach, the guy in charge, is a 1, wing 2. And I know my son got so frustrated because it was like the rules kept changing. And if you would do something different, then there'd be a new rule, about how to do that right. And if you did something different, well, then there'd be another rule. And, as a 5, an ENTP or an INTP, the debater, that's going to be frustrating to somebody who's like, wait, why are you making more rules? And where do these rules come from? Is there a book somewhere? Where's the book? Where's the book that I could read you're getting these rules from? Because it feels like you're just creating them based on the actions and activities of the people you're watching. That seems kind of arbitrary. How can you rigidly create rules and adhere to rules that you arbitrarily create? That's an interesting question. Why should I rigidly follow rules that aren't coming from any kind of rule? Now, if you could point to some authority, that says, hey, here's the worldwide international rules for 9 square in the air. Even that, remember, like, these are kids just playing a game. They're out in the parking lot just playing a game, and maybe they're just wanting to have fun. Have you ever thought of that? Maybe they're just wanting to have fun, and they need some basic rules, to keep everybody doing the same thing, or tempers will flare, no doubt. If we don't have any rules, tempers will flare, and there'll be all kinds of chaos. I get it, but remember, like, ask yourself the question, like, what's the goal here? What's the goal here? Are any of these people going to become professional 9 square in the air athletes, that are going to be tested at some point on all of these rules? What's the goal here? I think the goal is to provide an opportunity for kids to have fun, to connect, and to enjoy themselves. Don't forget that's the goal. And sometimes in our rigid drivenness to, like, conform to our personality's good and evil, I think sometimes we can forget, like, what is the goal that I'm trying to accomplish here? And that's a good question to always kind of pull you back. Am I being, like, ridiculous right now? Okay. Am I doing things that are moving away from that goal? Okay. So let's see. You may become angry. Uh-oh. Angry. There it is. It's that dragon that you fight, right? You might become angry when people don't follow the rules, or they don't follow the rules the way you think they should, or they don't follow the rules as soon as you think they should. I kind of think of a lot of ones saying, like, this should have been done a long time ago. This should have been handled a long time ago. And even if you, like, show up and you finally get it right, you might still feel criticized, like, I should have done it, 3 days ago. Wow, that's exhausting, right? For yourself and for others. And you might kind of wonder, like, who died and made you boss? Just saying. Okay, so ways you think you should adhere to your standards. And probably, you might have a hard time differentiating between your standards and the standards. The standards and your standards aren't necessarily the same thing. And again, can you flesh this out completely in your life? Like, do you follow these standards in every area, every arena of your life? For example, okay, what are the rules for playing 9 square in the air or basketball? Okay, well, those could be looked up, those could be decided, and those could be, but what are the rules for relationships? Where do you find those rules? What are the rules for the way we communicate in our marriage? Are there rules for that? Are there rules for, how you organize the garage? I could probably find some kind of guidelines or whatever about how to organize your garage, but where are you looking to find rules for how to deal with a rebellious daughter? Where's those rules? And you might confuse the standards with your standards and enforce your standards like they're the standards. And when other people don't obey the standards that are your standards, I just wonder what happens. I guess think of it maybe like this. What if there's a dichotomy sometimes between rules and relationship? Rules and relationship. Which one of those will you likely come down on? And is it really where you want to land? So I get it. You got your rules, you got your standards, and everybody has rules and standards. We all do. Some of us are more flexible about them. But what do you do when you're being pushed against a relationship, for example, that you value? Like, what if your daughter comes home and says she's going to date some guy that maybe you don't, or date some girl, and it's not in your worldview, and you're like, whoa, I don't know how I feel about this. They're dating somebody that I don't necessarily understand or approve of, or what do you do then? What does the relationship mean to you? Does it mean more than your beliefs and opinions and convictions about what is right here? Is it right to break a relationship? Is that right? Is that okay? What's your goal? What is it you want to accomplish? I think this is where it really, like, rubs into real life. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. Adhere to your standards and correct behavior, though you likely avoid fully acknowledging your anger. Again, because you don't want to be angry. You don't want to feel angry. You don't want to look angry. You don't want to come across as angry. You know, anger isn't necessarily bad. I mean, it's kind of what we do with that anger. It's how we express that anger. Sometimes anger is exactly the right emotion. If you see somebody beating somebody up that, doesn't deserve it. I mean, if you see somebody that's abusing somebody or hurting somebody or manipulating or controlling somebody, it would be 100% right to get angry. If you see somebody being, taken advantage of in some way, then anger is exactly the right thing to feel. But notice, is your anger that kind of anger? Or is it the anger of like, my preferences aren't being acknowledged and rigidly followed? Is it your preferences? Because that's different than the rules for life. So you might just ask yourself, like, where does my rules coming from? Is it just coming from my gut? Well, aren't other people's rules coming from their gut? There has to be some higher standard that you're appealing to if you expect people to respect those rules. And then realize, even if you point to some higher standard, whether that's your religious convictions or your beliefs about society or your political convictions, recognize that other people don't necessarily share those religious convictions. You can't point to a Bible and say, this is the standard, and other people, they go, well, why should I believe the Bible? So you're going to have these other difficult questions, and to do that, you got to be careful about being on the moral high ground. Think about it like this: you want to be on the high ground, the moral high ground. I mean, and I totally respect that. You want to know what the right thing is, and then you want to be there. You want to align yourself with that. That is absolutely something to respect. It's something to applaud. It's something that all of us, ought to be more like. Just recognize that when you're up on that moral high ground, you're kind of no longer on the ground with the rest of humanity. And so everybody might, no, I shouldn't say everybody, but many people might perceive you as looking down on them. And once you get that feeling that somebody's looking down on you, it's hard to relate to that person, and you might find yourself moving away from them. And that's not really what you want. You don't really want that. No, you don't really want that. You want to relate to people. You want to help people. And you do help people when you accept them first, love them first, and then guide them into a better way. But you got to kind of love them first, And we see that modeled for us by, some people in there. They loved them first, and they related to them first, before they showed them, the better way. Before they said, go and leave your life of sin, they said, neither do I condemn you. Think about that. Neither do I condemn you. And then there's the go and leave your life of sin. You guys that know, you know. All right, so where are we at here? You may experience anger as resentment or frustration. Like, well, why do they get to do that? Secretly, I know you'd never say this out loud, but secretly, you may kind of, in some dark place, you might kind of wish that you had the freedom to do the things they're doing. Now, that might be something you don't want to acknowledge, but there might be a part of you somewhere, just this little teeny tiny part of you back in there that kind of looks at the people doing those bad things or doing the things they shouldn't be doing and thinking, well, why can't I do that? I'm not allowed to do that. I can't get away with that. And there might be some little part of you that sort of secretly wishes that you could go do those things. And you tell yourself no, and you're very rigid with yourself, and you discipline yourself. Then there's a frustration of like, well, why don't they do that? Notice that leaks out in maybe the way you interact with people. That frustration and resentment, or that sort of angry bitterness, it sort of leaks out in the way you interact with people. So you may experience this anger as resentment toward people who do bad things that you would never, I don't know what's going on, you would never allow yourself to do. Why are they free to do whatever they want and I can't? Why are they free to, go out on weekends and have these big parties and, they're not being responsible parents. They just want to go out and they want to carouse and they want to shoot it up. And should I say shoot it up? I don't know if is that guns or drugs? I don't know. But they want to just, have this big time, and they want to go out and spend all their money on these big elaborate vacations. And, I know. Does it make you feel better in some way? That's a good thought. Do I feel more put together if I can see the flaws of others? Is there some kind of sideways benefit you get out of seeing the failures, shortcomings, and flaws of others. You don't build a city. How do I want to say this? You don't make your building taller in the city by tearing down all of the other structures. It makes your building seem taller, but it's not really any taller by going down and, demolishing any other buildings that, are also, I'm losing my metaphor there. Okay, so why are they free to do whatever they want? Notice if you tend to display a similar rigidity concerning ethics, morals, and work. And work is a big thing, isn't it? I mean, work is important. It may be really important to you, and that's good. We appreciate that because we need people, that care about work and getting their work done and reminding the rest of us of showing up on time and doing a good job and working hard and giving our best. All of that is a wonderful gift that you bring. It's just remember, a healthy life is what? A balanced life. So what do you balance with work? Not more work at home. That's not a balance. I go to work for 8 hours and then I come home and I do more work. I'm a balanced person because I work at home and I work at work. No. What balances work? Leisure? Do you care about leisure as much as you care about work? Do you care about enjoyment of life? Do you care about relaxing? Do you need to make a relaxation schedule? Do you need to put it on your calendar like it's okay to take this day to just relax, take this day off? What would happen if you didn't do all the things you should do today? Would your head explode? If you just went out and had a good time? What if you focused on, I'm going to take this $200 and I'm going to take my family out and we're just going to blow it having a great time. And I'm not going to complain that people aren't spending my money right. I'm just going to structure this day as a way to relax, leaning on 9, be with the people in my life, leaning on 2, having a great time, line to 7, doing something meaningful beyond my work, line to 4. Can you do that one day? What would happen? Would you feel guilty? Would your inner critic get really loud with you? You can tell that inner critic to stop. That's not the voice of God, that inner critic, that inner parent. Can you tell that Rottweiler to just back down a little bit, leave me alone. I hear you, but you're not going to be the loudest voice today. What would happen? Well, I guess you might say you'd be a little more present to life. I'll see you next time, guys.